Benedicite Dominus. Welcome to question 7 of the Secunda Secundae, the effects of faith. And I am Dr. Thibault. Just as a quick note, if anybody's following along and you would like a copy of the Summa, there's many online, but I also have a link in the description. So sometimes it might help if you actually read it, either at the same time or before or after, because St. Thomas is asking certain questions. It's not always clear, maybe from these videos, which questions he's asking or why he's asking them. It might make more sense after you've read it or if you read it before. But I imagine some people are using this as a study guide for it. So the first question is about fear as an effect of faith. Now this can be sometimes a tough one for people, right? One of the gifts of the Holy Spirit is fear of the Lord, right? Fear of the Lord. We can sometimes overly stress that. Anyone who went through Catholic school, especially around the time maybe that I went through it, we always say, well, we don't really mean fear, we mean awe, right? That's what we mean by fear of the law, awe of the Lord, something like that. But St. Thomas goes into much more detail than my catechism teachers or my high school teachers might have went into. So St. Thomas points out that there are two types of fear that we're talking about, right? There is servile fear and filial fear. So servile fear, the fear of a servant, right, a lesser person, right? When we deal with love, we talk about this too, right? The justice, into justice, when we looked at that. The love we owe to God is not as an equal, but as a slave to a master, right? It's kind of a rude thing to say it in our modern day, but we're not loving God as an equal. We don't have our justice that we owe to God is not as equals, but as to someone who is notably greater than we are. So this is the first type of fear, and St. Thomas points out that it's lifeless faith, right? If you don't know what lifeless faith, you might want to look back at question 6, question 4. We talked about this a number of times. So lifeless faith, that's intellectual faith, faith that's in our intellect, that our wills have assented, our wills have sought to have our intellects assent to the beliefs of the first truths, right? So we believe it, right? It's in our minds, right? It's in our intellects that we believe, but it's only in our intellects. Has not manifested in any way. So fear, servile fear, can be that type of thing. It comes from the appetite. So, as an image. In The Wizard of Oz, when the whole troupe goes and they're before the wizard, and he's a giant floating head with big bangs and fire and booming voice, right? And they're trembling, right? This is from the appetites, right? Why are they afraid? Well, because it's something scary, right? This is why, right? So if somebody believes in God, right, intellectually, right, they have intellectually assented to the faith. Well, what could be your fear if you've assented to the faith? Eternal damnation, right? The punishment that we deserve for the things we've done in this world, right? The punishment part of God's awe, that we don't live up to who we have been called to be. This is emotional, it's fear, it's servile fear, because God is great and we are minions, compared to God's greatness. We are servants, right? It's the fear of a slave to the master, right? That we didn't get it right and they're going to beat us and torture us, right? That type of fear. That's what my high school or my catechism teachers would have said. Don't think of it that way. Well, St. Thomas says, think of it that way half the time, right? Kind of split the difference. Half the time, think about servile fear. It's real, right? You should be afraid of hell, right? It's if it causes you to repent, it's called a imperfect contrition, because you did it for fear of hell. But even fear of hell is still faith, right? It means you believe in a final judgment, you believe in God, you believe in the devil, right? You believe things if you're afraid of hell. So it's imperfect because you're doing it out of a selfish desire to avoid punishment, but it's still contrition, right? It's still servile fear. It's an effect of faith, right? You wouldn't be afraid if you didn't think that hell exists. I guess that might be a more easy way to look at it. An atheist does not fear hell. Why? Because they don't think it exists, right? So fear, servile fear, derives from faith. Next is filial fear, which is philia. It's brotherly fear, right? More close to an equal, right? Where we draw closer to God out of charity, right? Out of love we are drawn in. If God is so great, so loving, so perfect, gave his life for us, right? You would want to draw closer to him if you know that he wants you to draw closer to him, right? The response to God would be love and to be drawn in, right? This is now not lifeless faith, but life-full faith, right? This is the perfection of faith is lived out in charity. It's an expression of the faith, right? So this is more perfect, right? More perfect. Now this would be more like, instead of fear of the Lord, awe of the Lord, right? If you're drawn into the awe, the mystery of it. It makes us appreciate God, and it does recognize that we are not equals, but since God is reaching out to us, we should want to go, we should want to, right? If God is so great and he's reaching out a hand to us, we should accept his hand and allow him to pull us in. This is only logical, right? It only makes sense. You don't want to be separated from God, right? If God is perfect love and acceptance and forgiveness and eternity, right? Well, you wouldn't want to be separated from God, right? So if hell is the separation of man from God, you do not want hell, not because you don't want to be tortured, but because you don't want to be separated from God for all eternity, right? God is the most lovely, the most attractive, the most people can be annoying, but God, we might annoy God, but God doesn't annoy us. God draws us in. You wouldn't want to say no to that, right? This is very practical, right? Very logical. And both of these proceeds from faith, right? Both proceeds from faith. If you don't have faith, then you're not afraid of hell. If you don't have faith, you're not afraid of being separated from God, and you don't want to be drawn into him, right? If you don't have faith. So both of these are drawn from, they come following faith, right? It wouldn't make any sense to have the fear of separation from God or fear of punishment before faith, because you don't think they exist, right? It doesn't make any sense. So very, very simple concepts, really. The second part is, does faith purify the heart? Now, that kind of sounds like a little bit of a softball question, right? Of course it purifies the heart, right? St. Thomas says the heart is purified by faith. It's quickened by charity, right? So faith does purify. It's not just the intellectual, right? It's not the imperfect, formless faith. It's faith perfected more than anything. Purifies the heart, right? Love purifies the heart. And St. Thomas says this is kind of like silver mixed with gold, right? If you mix silver with gold, you don't say, the silver has been ruined, right? It hasn't been ruined if you mix it with gold. If you mix it with tin, okay, you've ruined the silver, right? You've made the silver lesser by mixing it with tin. If you mix it with gold, you haven't made it lesser, you've made it greater, right? I believe silver mixed with gold is what we call white gold, and it's very desirable. People like white gold. It's more valuable than silver. It's less valuable than pure gold, right? Because it's mixed. So faith mixed with faith added to anything makes it more valuable, right? So purifies the heart. It makes it more rich, because in some sense it puts God into it, right? So if you have prudence mixed with faith, and faith lived out charity, prudence with love and charity is better than prudence, right? If you are a teacher and you teach, teaching is good. Teaching with love is better, right? Being a nurse is good. Being a nurse who loves is better, right? So you add faith and love into the mix. It's like adding gold, right? It's adding gold to whatever you mix it to. It purifies it, makes it better. And really, I think this is equally as important. Faith, it raises the heart to love God over material things. So the heart loves, it wants to love, right? The heart wants to give charity, it wants to love. Well, but if let's say you're an atheist in the world, you're a non-deist in the world, right? Well, I can love my glasses, and I can love my dog, and I can love this desk, and I can love the camera, right? I can love these things, which is all fine, they're all good. But if I can direct that love towards faith, towards the first principles, right, towards the first truth, if I can direct my love towards God, now it is greater, right? It's purified my heart. And now when we love God first, and the first truths, right, we love that first, everything else falls into proper ordering, right? There's a proper ordering to everything, and then everything is better, right? It's more perfect when it's properly ordered. So it purifies the hearts of idols and false things, and it directs us towards what really counts. So faith makes it better, right? Faith makes things better. Right? If you look at St. Augustine's suffering when his mother died, right? When his friend died, when he was a Manichaean, he was inconsolable. When his mother died as a Christian, he was sad, but not inconsolable, because he had faith, right? The idea that St. Monica is in heaven, right? So he misses her, but it's not the same, right? Even death with faith purifies the heart and makes it better. So in conclusion, fear is an effect of faith, right? It comes as a result of faith, both servile and filial fear. And then faith purifies the heart because it redirects the heart towards the proper end. And anything, you mix any virtue with faith and love, and they become even stronger virtues, right? Even greater virtues. It's like mixing them with gold. It only makes them more valuable. Okay, I hope you have a great rest of your week. And this is the end of faith in itself. And next we will move on to gifts of faith.